Hi all, welcome back. Today's the day for the Brave New World. Not the Iron Maiden song, but of course the classic by British philosopher Aldous Huxley. First, some general information. It was written in 1931 or 32. This one is 1932. But apparently it's 1931. There is some contradictory information about it, which I have found, but for now the book says 1932, so I'm gonna say and call it 1932. This is an international cover, so you probably won't find it outside of Belgium. It was part of a series of forbidden books, or books that have been banned at one point. Madame Bovary was a part of it. Lolita was a part of that series as well. Slaughterhouse-Five was a part of that series as well. I think it was about 25 books. I can't remember exactly because I found this one secondhand. It's not that big of a book. I think it's only about 65,000 words, which is not a lot, especially by today's fantasy and sci-fi standards. But in general, I think it was a great read with a lot of food for thought, although I do have to admit that I found the ending both abrupt and a bit lackluster. Especially the last chapter was mediocre at best. But on the other hand, it was a bit understandable to go in that direction because he'd run out of story, but he'd run out of story for some characters, but then there was this other part that was not resolved, and he had to fix it in, or fit that in somewhere. That being said, there was a lot of racism, lots of slurs. Yeah, I have a hat on today because my hair is too long and I look like Wolverine in the old school X-Men movies. That being said, there's a lot of racism, lots of slurs, lots of body shaming. I'll come to that in a second. The society is built on forced happiness, and to enforce that, they have obligatory drugs, which is called soma, S-O-M-A. It causes euphoria in small doses, hallucinations in medium doses, and in big doses it's a tranquilizer. I think there's even this police force which sprays gaseous form of soma, which actually tranquilizes. Yeah, and there was some big fight scene, which was something that I did not see coming. But there was some fight scene and there was a riot and they spewed gaseous soma, which actually tranquilized our characters which were in the fight. There's a lot of promiscuous sex and hedonism, even starting from a very young age. Actually children, so that's something that was weird, to say the least, from a modern perspective. And in contrast to that, having children is frowned upon, so it's something weird as well. I think the best way to describe the premise of Brave New World is, what if we found the scientific formula, yes, I can say it, for happiness. And this is because the scientific and rational way they enforce happiness and with which they look at nature and society is, on one hand, strangely logical. I was thinking to myself, yeah, this makes sense, more than I'm willing to admit. And on the other hand, it's incomprehensible for us because it's totally devoid of emotions. They do, of course, have their emotions, considering happiness is forced, but they don't know boredom because there's entertainment everywhere, which is reminiscent of today's society. but all of their negative emotions are actively suppressed by that drug, by soma. They don't know jealousy, they don't know pain, they don't know passion, so every extreme is dampened. And this is all in an effort to gain happiness, but I think I'd rather call it numb. Even the children, they aren't born, but they're hatched in a bottle, in different ways, of course, which I'll come back to later. They're hatched in a bottle, and they don't have mothers or fathers or brothers or sisters. Of course, they're all, or a lot of them are identical twins, which makes it even more weird. But they don't have families, which causes some kind of emotional detachment, of which Buddhist monks would actually be very proud. Yeah, the castes. This is something that I don't really want to go very deep on because it's very well explained in the book. They have these different castes. So we have the alphas, which are of course then subdivided again in alpha plus, alpha minus, stuff like that. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon, where the alpha plus plus are the world leaders and psychologists and stuff like that, all the very smart people, and the epsilons are, I'm trying to think of a correct word here, I mean, even mentally challenged is the best word, because they're described in a very direct and blunt way to, I think the word Aldous uses is half or semi-imbeciles, so they can barely breathe and stand up straight at the same time, stuff like that. That's stupid. But they are very, very blunt in their description, as I have already mentioned, the body shaming, the racism, stuff like that. And the general ease with which they describe the castes and the differences between the castes, and they look down upon and look up to the other castes is no, not even look up to. I mean, every one of them is happy that they are whatever they are. An epsilon, for example, the lowest caste of society, is happy that they're an epsilon because they got it easy. Say, okay, yeah, I can go to work, I have some fun, and I don't have to worry about any other issues. I don't have to worry about money, I don't have to worry about war, about the machinations of society in general. They just think it's too much of a burden to actually think. And to me that was somewhat jarring, because they even glorify the caste system, which on one hand makes sense because everyone's a cog in the wheel, or a cog in the machine, yeah. But on the other hand, yeah, I think it's strange. It's something that sparks up a lot of food for thought and a lot of debate. But their caste system and their general ease of everything and the rationale with which they approach coincides also with what we have today. Their disdain for what we have today. They have vetoed books. They just laugh at our culture, at what we have now. They think it's ridiculous to have a mother. To have a mother and to say that you have a mother is actually considered borderline pornography. There's no religion as well, and they ridicule religion as it is. They ridicule every piece of culture or art, modern or classic. I think somewhere Shakespeare is laughed at even. So yeah, it's very strange because it's this. On the one hand, it's a modern society. It's difficult to put into words. I've tried writing it down, but even then I had trouble. But yeah, those were the general ideas I have about the book. Some parts, especially in the beginning, are very hard sci-fi, very hard on the science side, because you actually get dropped while following this little class of alpha plus children, and they are getting a tour or receiving a tour in the breeding center. I don't know how it's called in English because I read it in Dutch. But they get called there in the breeding center, having a tour, and they just see everything, and they get explained the entire process of how children are made, and how some children are the alphas, and how what they do to create epsilons, or what they do to the perfect human being to create epsilons, so they actively weaken them and dumb them down. So actually genetic engineering, but you know, avant la lettre. So yeah, that's very, very hard on sci-fi, and I really had to plow through it, because the best part is actually about chapter 5 up until the end, I think. It doesn't really start up until chapter 4 or 5, where we meet Lenina and Bernard. Bernard is this alpha plus psychologist who does not feel at home in society, and he feels that something is missing. So he goes to find the savages, people that live outside of society, who actively birth children. They still have children the old-fashioned way. They still have diseases. They still grow old, which does not happen, by the way, in Utopia. Everybody stays from adulthood until death. They look the same, and they die at 60. That's a fixed point. That being said, he meets a savage. He meets and her son, and he takes them back to Utopia. And I think the son of the savage, John is his name, is actually the best and most interesting character, because we see this this adult male having lived outside of Utopia, in a reserve, having been born as well, and his upbringing, his classic view of the world, even knowing Shakespeare, is clashing with this new view of the world, where emotions and family, as something he has, are completely absent. And there's the, I'm trying to think of a word, but I don't have one, so I think I'm going to say brainwashed utopian society. And we see that culture clash between both of them, and that actively pushes along the story. And from then on, it's this amazing read. It was a real page turner. It's quick as well, considering it's only 64,000 words. So yeah, that was, I really like John. He's, of course, considering he's been born the natural way and he's been raised the normal way, he's the most relatable character. On to the actual subject of today. Why is it so relevant? Multifaceted, I think. It's criticism to consumerism, for starters. It's one of the greatest themes in the books as well, because a part of the formula for happiness is that people don't have time to think about stuff. They have to be distracted at all times, which causes them to have to work, but I mean, they cannot be distracted by play all of the time, because they would get lazy, and that's not good as well. But considering everybody works, this means a lot of it gets produced and a lot gets done. So, of course, that means everything has to be bought. Otherwise, we'd be having stock and stock and stock, and we'd just be having tons and tons and tons of useless stuff that can't be sold. Which, of course, raises the question, what do we have to do to keep people, to keep our redundant, or what do we have to do to keep redundance at a low level? They enforce consumerism from a young age, actively having people, well, of course everybody sleeps, but every night when they sleep they get these Pavlovian conditioning, where they're hypnotized, and some sentences are said thousands of times, some are said hundreds of times, depending on what age. sometimes I see these lines in the books. Let's just say, ending is better than mending. 15,000 repeats from 13 to 17, for example. Something like that. And of course, ending is better than mending. So you always need new stuff, and that creates consumerism. Of course, that's very reminiscent of today, but it's pushed even further in the Brave New World, where the government is obsessed by economical growth. Where have you heard that before? And they even pressure individuals to constantly follow the latest trends, something which is also reminiscent of today's social media. Eerily similar to today, but of course we see it now as consumer, while in the book we see it from the creator point of view, so to speak. We see it from this different perspective, and it's like, yeah, why didn't I think of it before? Something else that's considering, speaking of social media, censorship is something that's very prevalent, or prevalent. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. But stuff are being suppressed. Even hard scientific facts are being hidden from the people. New research or new scientific research always has to be approved for publishing by, the 10 chiefs of the world order. And people that are too smart for their own good have two options. Either they renounce their own happiness and become the chief of the world, or one of the chiefs of the world, or helpers of the chiefs, so actively become the government, or they get exiled to Iceland or Falklands or stuff like that. They get exiled to an island. I think Cyprus was the first one. Yeah, Cyprus was the first one. They had tried to make this Alpha Plus society with only Alpha Pluses, and that was a total train wreck. But they get exiled to an island somewhere to live outside of society. So on one hand, it's bad, but on the other hand, they're living with all of the most interesting people. So that's good. So they get punished from a public perspective, but from their personal perspective, it's semi-punishment, semi-reward. So it's not that bad. So yeah, it's something strange, but all in all, I think it was an amazing book. Oh yeah, looks, of course. Why did I not mention that? Something that's very relevant today, their looks. They are, I think the word's plastic, which is being encouraged. I don't know, it's plastic in Dutch, but I don't know what the English word is that Mr. Huxley uses. But they're encouraged to always look youthful and stay skinny and stay smiling and stay happy and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's also the same today, because we all get pushed. Happiness is the state of being, because we have all these self-help coaches, we have these TED Talks, we have these healers and stuff like that. So yeah, happiness is still considered the state of being, or the default state of being. And of course it's dependent, well not really, but they think it's dependent on looks as well, because everybody wants to stay youthful. And of course we have that same problem, especially with older people who they get hair transplants, they get new teeth, they get Botox, they get lip fillers, they get extensions, they get surgery even. So yeah, this is also eerily similar to what we have today. So all in all, I think Mr. Huxley has predicted the future very well in some cases, not that good in other cases, but it's not that bad. I mean, 3 out of 4 is not bad, I think. Yeah, I think that's it for today. If I find any other stuff, I will probably edit it in the video, but for now I think we're done. Spew out your opinions, spew out comments, tell me why I'm wrong, of course, or how you interpret this book. And of course, if you haven't, please check out my weekly update from yesterday, because I have a very important question of the day there. It involves my next classic of the month. So if you go there, guys, my mission's been accomplished. See you Thursday. Bye bye.